Hey guys, welcome to today's Vehicle Visionary. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. And I know it's not completely original, but you know what? I thought it was a good idea to go through and do my favorite 20 car reviews from 2020 from my YouTube channel, from the Vehicle Visionary YouTube channel. So I'm going to do this as quickly as I can, try and keep this short, but I hope you enjoy it. And I will make sure to link all of the videos down in the description of this video that I talk about today as far as my favorite 20 videos from 2020. And this was not easy to do because during 2020 I filmed 212 videos and it was hard enough to narrow that down to 20. So let's get started with my favorite, and we'll start with number 20 and work our way back to number 1. And it was the 1957 Porsche 356A that comes in at number 20. I really enjoyed that review. It was a very unusual experience to get to do that car, and even though it wasn't an original 356A, it was a replica, you really couldn't tell the difference as far as whether it was original or not. It did have a few things such as air conditioning, and the engine was actually, I believe, out of a Subaru WRX, if I remember correctly. Definitely not the original stock engine that came in the Porsche 356A, but it was a lot of fun to get to sit in that car and see. It really looked original from top to bottom unless you really knew what you were looking at, and just a lot of fun. And the owner was really cool to meet too. That's one of my favorite things about doing these videos is the people that I get to meet. And then number 19 was the 2009 Pontiac Solstice. Belongs to a really good friend of mine, a super sweet lady. And when she originally bought that car early in 2020, she had told me she wanted me to take her out and show her what the car could do. Well, didn't take much for me to say, oh yeah, not a problem, we can do that. But I was really impressed with, even though it wasn't a high-performance car necessarily, didn't have an outrageous amount of horsepower, the handling more than made up for that. It literally handled like a go-kart. I took that car through my favorite corner that you see in a lot of my videos, favorite little bend in the road, and I wish I had done it on my third run through there. We made one run around the block, so to speak, with the car so that I could get used to the steering. And then on the second one, I took the speed up a little bit more. And on the third one, we didn't film. We filmed the second one. The steering and handling I was very used to, and I took it through there at a pretty good rate of speed, and it just gripped like nobody's business. It was a lot of fun to drive, and just to kind of check out. Never really paid much attention to the Solstice prior to that point. And number 18, a car that I learned a big lesson from, as far as when you put a video out on YouTube, it looks like it's not going to do that well. That does not mean anything, because the 2020 Mercedes-Benz S560, as of the time that I'm recording this video, is my second highest viewed video on my YouTube channel, around 130,000 views. But it was a lot of fun to do the video with that car, to learn. And I didn't know as much about the Mercedes-Benz vehicles as I do now, so there was probably a few things I could have done better, but learning about how the interior lighting worked and just seeing all the different features and every option that that car had made it for a lot of fun to explore and enjoyable to drive and all that good stuff. And like I said, I learned something important from that to put into future videos. Number 17, as far as I know, this is the only time anything like this has ever happened, but it's the 2021 Toyota Tundra 1794 edition. And it's a unique vehicle as far as the specs that it has, and especially the exterior color on this particular model. But what made this one so special for me was that I just so happened to be at the Toyota dealership the day that the new owner was coming to pick it up, because he had seen my video. The whole reason he came and bought this truck was because he saw my video on my YouTube channel, and he drove from Atlanta, Georgia to Shreveport, Louisiana. That's about an 8-hour drive one way to buy that truck. And I just so happened to be there. There's the picture of us on the screen together. So I got to meet this guy, super nice. It was just really cool to have that experience and know that somebody bought a vehicle because of one of my videos. And as far as I know, that's the only time that's ever happened. Number 16 was the 2020 Land Rover Defender. Something that was highly anticipated, and I know I didn't have the first one out there on YouTube, but I definitely had one of the first. That video performed very well, and it was a lot of fun to explore the new Defender and see what it had as far as the interior and exterior features and all that stuff. And unfortunately, I didn't get to do a true test drive with it because, number one, I couldn't get my tripod to mount. This was before I had my system where I can use the GoPro and the suction cup and all that good stuff to do my test drives. And so when I did that particular video with that vehicle, I couldn't get the tripod to work to film the video as far as the test drive goes. Plus, I had to rush back to the dealership because it was the only one they had at the time. It was the very first one that had come in, and somebody was coming to look at it in about a half an hour, so I had to rush it back to the dealership. But a lot of fun either way. And number 15, the 2021 Chevrolet Tahoe, something that, again, the redesign of the Tahoe was highly anticipated. I was very curious to see what Chevrolet was going to do and what they were going to change and see exactly what was available. And it was a lot of fun to go and, again, just kind of crawl in and around the interior and see the changes, see what was different from 2020 and previous years, because I'd done a couple of them prior. And to be able to see that and to get, again, one of the first ones out there on YouTube was quite an honor and just an overall fun experience being able to check out something that was highly anticipated like that and get a lot of interaction with people commenting and watching the video. And number 14, the 2021 Honda Accord 2.0T. This is the touring trim level. And even though there were not a lot of significant changes for 2021, the two majors on that one that I think got people really excited and that I enjoyed learning about and especially using were the heads-up display. That was my favorite, something that had not been in any Accord prior to 2021, and the wireless capabilities for Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. And I have tutorial videos on how that works if you want to see that on my Honda playlists. And that 2.0T, the 2-liter, 252 horsepower turbocharged four-cylinder, it'll break traction when you take off if you launch it, basically. It doesn't have launch mode, but basically when I say launch, I just mean when you take off with it. And we actually did a video, not with the same one on that particular video that you're seeing on the screen, but a different one where we put on a dyno jet to see what kind of horsepower numbers it would get, and just a lot of fun with that. In fact, that particular model I took home one night for a nighttime test drive, and it broke traction, as I knew, when I took off in sport mode from a standing start. And it actually broke traction just a tiny bit going into second gear. It's pretty impressive. Only 252 horsepower, but it all has to do with the way the car is geared and set up. And number 13, the 2021 Chevrolet Camaro 1SS. Purely fun because it sounded so awesome. The same engine that was in the C7 and actually is in the C8 Corvettes with a different tune-up on it. But it sounded so good and the acceleration was great. In fact, at one point in the video, because of where I mounted the camera, you could see it push me back in the seat pretty good. It was just overall fun, just pure performance, something I absolutely love. And the 2020 Mercedes-Benz CLA45, the AMG CLA45, a little four-door car. Not a huge motor, it's a 2-liter four-cylinder, but I'm going to tell you what, that was a lot of fun to drive because it handled so well, and there was a few things I wish I could have done with it to kind of drift it around a little bit, but you know, I try and kind of keep that down a little bit, especially out on the streets. And I don't know, the general manager has really been very gracious with what he's basically given me permission to do with these cars, but I didn't want to push it too far. But that was a fun car to drive, and sometimes it's a surprise at how well these cars handle. I even took it around my driveway in the circular part of the driveway at a pretty good clip, and you can see that on the screen right now. Just overall fun, put a big smile on my face. And number 11, another Mercedes. Now this one was fun for a lot of reasons. It was the 2016 Mercedes-Benz AMG CLS63. And I didn't really know anything about that model when I took it out for the video. One of the salesmen, who's a good friend of mine at the dealership, just recommended that I take it out. And that thing was rowdy. It was incredible how fast that car was. In fact, I really, like I said, I didn't know anything about it. So after I got it out on the road and got it warmed up, enough heat in the engine and all that good stuff, I dropped the hammer on it and probably had a similar look on my face to what my two friends did, especially my friend who was the cop that rode in the car with me when we took off, and I didn't tell him what I was going to do when I was going to drop the hammer on it. That was a lot of fun. That car handled great and would just be an awesome daily driver. And number 20, my good friend John, owner of Lux Auto Concepts, his 2020 BMW M4 Heritage Edition. That car was a blast to drive. He's done a lot of mods to that car, and it is putting out some serious horsepower, and I just couldn't have had a better time with it. I've done a couple of videos with that car, and if you love exhaust crackles, which I do, just something I enjoy when a car does that kind of thing, just the way it sounds when you're downshifting and upshifting depending on the vehicle. You can hear the pops and all that kind of stuff. It just put a big smile on my face, handled great. Bit of a unique vehicle because of a lot of what he's done to it. In fact, we're going to have another video with it in the near future because being that he owns Lux Auto Concepts, well, he's wrapped the car again, and this is going to look more unique than ever in the next video, so keep an eye out for that. And number 9, something I did very recently. Not all of these vehicles are going to be 2020s. This is one that I did during the 2020 year, but it was a 2021 Ford F-150 XLT, completely redesigned. And to be able to get my hands on one so quickly was really awesome. To be able to see such as the workspace tailgate and the interior changes and take it out on the road and drive it. It was an overall exciting experience just to see what Ford had done and see if they had done a really good job, which I believed they had after my time with that particular truck. And number 8, kind of interesting that it would fall in number 8 because this is the 2020 C8 Corvette. This was a 3LT model that was on the showroom floor at Red River Chevrolet, and I didn't have the keys to the first one, or the remote I should say, to the first one that I did. I did a C8 prior to this one, but this time I had the remote. I was able to start it and even rev the engine a little bit. I didn't get it up too high because it was in the break-in period, obviously, so again, trying to be respectful in that area. But to be able to see this 3LT, a pretty heavily loaded out model, and give an interior and exterior tour, well, it was quite fun to say the least. Another one of those vehicles highly anticipated, obviously, and voted Car of the Year by Car and Driver, not only in 2020, but I believe again in 2021. And number 7, the 2020 BMW M550i belongs to a colonel in the Air Force, one of the nicest, most laid-back people you could ever meet. And this was not the only time that this happened during 2020, but since he was with me, I asked him to be my cameraman basically on the test drive. So he was in the passenger seat, and probably the best part of the video was when he said, "Why don't you launch it?" And we were sitting at a red light. I made sure there was no cross traffic when the light turned green, and put the brake down, put the gas down, let go of the brake, and it made a lot of noise, and apparently his wife was actually right behind us in the video. It's kind of funny. Apparently it really got the attention of the lady next to us because she kind of went sideways a little bit. You can kind of see it in the video. It was overall so much fun to drive, and I really appreciated the fact that Scott, the owner of that car, was so laid back. Like I said, I think if I hadn't driven it hard enough in the first test drive, he probably would have said, "We need to do a take 2 and you need to actually drive this thing." But we didn't have to do that. Very cool. Number 6, something I don't think I ever would have said I'm going to maybe have a chance to review a Bentley one day, but because of the owner of that 1957 Porsche, that's how I got to do Scott's 550i and also the 2014 Bentley Continental GT. And he set all those up. These guys are both in the Air Force and just really cool laid-back folks. And the owner again of the Bentley, he was so gracious, so laid back, so kind, and he was in the passenger seat holding the camera during the test drive when we went flying through my favorite corner, and I was really just putting that car through its paces. Again, another one of these guys, and I've heard stories from other people, including Scott and Aaron, who owns the 57 Porsche, who have driven the same Bentley and said, when they didn't step on it, he said, "Man, don't drive this thing like a sissy, you know, get on it." And he didn't ever say that to me because I did get on it, and we had a great time. And it's just not only a great car, but a great person to get to know. It's just something I really enjoy about this more than anything else is the people that I get to meet because of what I do. And number 5, the 2017 C7 Stingray Corvette. That was kind of a special deal because that is my good friend, the Corvette lady's personal car, one of her vehicles that she owns. And because of some stuff she was dealing with at the time that was taking up a lot of her time, there was a local car show, the World of Wheels, that we have every year here in Northwest Louisiana. And she wanted me to take that car and clean it up and get it ready for the show and basically handle putting it in the show for her. And I made a lot of videos with it before and after that, drove it around. At the time, and this may still stand to be the truth today, I put more miles on that Corvette than she has. That was really cool. And to get first place in my class at the World of Wheels and have her say that's your trophy was just icing on the cake. But a lot of fun to drive. I really enjoyed that, and that caused me to kind of fall in love with Corvettes more so than I probably ever had before, spending that much time with one. I probably had that car for a month and a half in my garage, but it didn't spend all of its time in the garage, that's for sure. Number 14, the 2016 Dodge SRT Hellcat. That was a used model that I got from my friends at Land Rover of Shreveport. And I have another friend who's been in several of my videos, my buddy Jeremy, and he had told me one time, if you ever get a Hellcat, please bring it by my office and take me down the road in that thing. That's his dream car, basically. And so we did that, and I loved it because I was, again, able to drive it how it was meant to be driven. That is just literally punch you in the gut horsepower. Unbelievable, 707 horsepower. It was a lot of fun. In fact, we even had one of his employees sitting in the back seat of that car. He fit back there, so that made it a lot of fun. And that's again one of my favorite things about doing this stuff is when it's not just me, when I have other people involved in it and they get to have the experience and just enjoy the horsepower and all that good stuff. And number 3, this one was the first Mercedes that I actually did at the dealership back in February of 2020. It was the 2020 Mercedes-Benz AMG GT63. And at the time, I hadn't built the relationship up with the general manager that I have now, where I have his permission to pretty much just step on it anytime I want to. And so I really didn't get on it as much as I wanted to. Plus, when I left my filming location, it was 5 o'clock. There was a lot of traffic on the road, so I really couldn't do much anyway. But the really cool thing about that particular car was that not only was it just so much fun to drive, great technology, just having that experience, and it was one of the most expensive cars I've done too at $169,000. But a few months later, what had happened was the owner of all those conglomerate of those dealerships, not just Mercedes, but the Holmes Auto family basically, he took that car as his personal car for a few months. So eventually he took it back and said, let's go ahead and try and sell this thing. Well, it was broken in by that point, and I got to drive that thing and make a second video with it, and the difference was phenomenal and very noticeable between when I drove it when it wasn't broken in and when I drove it when it was, being able to take advantage of the 577 horsepower and whatever the number ultimately is when it makes it to the ground. Obviously, being an all-wheel drive vehicle, it loses a decent amount between the crank and the ground, or the wheels basically. And an interesting story behind number 2, the 2020 Land Rover Range Rover Sport. Now this was the HSE Dynamic that I'm showing you on the screen, but I originally did a Range Rover Sport Autobiography. Both had the 5-liter 518 horsepower supercharged engine under the hood. And I was on the phone with the general manager from the Mercedes and Land Rover and all those dealerships, and we were talking about that autobiography. And I told him I really had wanted to step on it, but I wanted to be respectful of the vehicles. And he said, no, that's part of the review. You need to do that. And so ever since then, that vehicle kind of opened the doors to me being able to drive a little more aggressively with some of these vehicles from certain dealerships. I don't do that every time. It just depends on what the management tells me I can do. But just the technology, seeing the dual screens and all the great additions that Land Rover has made to the Range Rover Sport over the years, while they haven't made a lot of exterior changes, basically few to none, they have really done a great job at upgrading the interior, and it was just so much fun to see that and learn the technology and work with it and play with it and learn it and all that good stuff. It was fun. Number one for me personally, I got to make a couple of different videos with this particular vehicle, even take it home after I had already driven it quite a bit, was the 2020 Mercedes-Benz AMG GLC63. I just fell in love with that model of vehicle, that SUV. I don't know exactly why, other than to tell you, and if you're not a car person like I am, it might be kind of hard to understand this, but I just kind of was one with that GLC. I don't know why that happened that way, but it had the exhaust crackles that I like so much, had plenty of horsepower, great acceleration. I really wanted to buy that one, but the payment was just a little bit too much at the time, and who knows, we'll see what happens here in the future with some of these vehicles as far as what I end up owning. But driving it was just so much fun. The handling was fantastic. The technology, all the great features and the functionality that I love so much in these Mercedes-Benz vehicles. And yeah, they're not the only ones that have that. But for some reason, that GLC 63 just clicked with me, even to the point where I made a little cinematic video with it, where I did kind of a voiceover and just put a bunch of stuff together. And like I said, every single one of these videos is linked down in the description of the video. So those are my top 20 videos from 2020 from the Vehicle Visionary YouTube channel. So, I sure appreciate each and every one of you who have helped to make 2020 just a literal record-breaking year, especially the last 2 months of the year. More money than I've made in a long time. Done very well, and a lot of views. And yeah, this is what I do for a living. So when you watch these videos, guys, you're really helping me out and just making a huge difference. And we're on track for January to be my best month ever for 2021. And we're just going to keep going. So as always, I appreciate each and every one of you and everybody who contributes to what I do here on my YouTube channel. Tell me down in the comments what you would like to see me feature in future videos. And if I can get my hands on it, it's not always possible, but if it is, I will definitely make that happen for you. Thanks for taking the time to watch today, guys, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye-bye.